welcome to our next episode. And we have Dr. Daniel Pompa, and he's going to be discussing intermittent fasting with us. So welcome, Dr. Daniel Pompa. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, fasting is one of my loves. I'm known for my cellular detox, which I've been teaching for almost 20 years now. But in the 90s, I fell in love with fasting. I know I just dated myself, but it's been a passion and a topic of mine. My new book is called Beyond Fasting. So this has been a part of my protocols that I've taught to doctors for years, my cellular detox and fasting. So love this topic. Can't wait to share what I've learned over 20 plus years.
So let's talk about you personally for a second. Like, how long have you done intermittent fasting, and what does a regular day look like for you? And have you done any extended fasting?
Yeah, I mean, my book Beyond Fasting teaches basically how to do an extended fast. I have intermittent fasted for more than 10 years, but extended fasts I've actually done longer. Like I said, I fell in love with it in the 90s when it was just me and some natural hygiene geeks, and I didn't even fit in actually because they were plant-based eaters and I was a grass-fed meat eater. So, but needless to say, I love the topic. I've read all of Herbert Shelton's work, and so I believe this about fasting. Our bodies are genetically programmed. Our DNA is programmed to fast. I believe we need fast to reset our DNA, to turn off bad genes, to reset our microbiome, to go through a process of renewal, or the autophagy, which we can talk about, gets rid of bad cells and we replace them with new cells. All of that, I think, because we have constant access to food today, is missing. So I believe even one longer extended fast a year is critical. I believe we can get some of these fasting benefits by daily intermittent fasting, which I think has caught on in the last few years. But I think the longer fasts are still missing in people's lives. And again, I believe we're genetically designed to fast, and we need to extend our life.
Well, and a lot of people get frustrated because I feel like they think, I work out, I filter my water, I filter my air, I use natural cleaning products, I eat organic, I take supplements, and, I'm still not feeling good.
Hmm.
And so what would you say about the impact that fasting has on kind of detoxing our body and kind of getting rid of some of the chemicals that we all are exposed to on a daily basis?
Yeah, look, I mean, what I teach is a combination of fasting with my cellular detox, because there is a need for both. But let's hone in on fasting for the moment, because fasting does create this autophagy where the body eats the bad cells. And again, that's needed because as we age, we develop more of these things called senescent cells. Those are just cells that live too long, but they cause mischief. They drive inflammation. If you get too many of them, you end up in chronic inflamed state because you're duplicating and you have these cells living too long. You have DNA that starts to malfunction, and eventually, of course, the worst case scenario that leads to cancer. But far before that, you just don't feel well. You don't feel yourself. To your point, your cells become older, inflamed, and now your hormones don't function correctly, because every hormone receptor or every hormone attaches to receptors on every cell. So typically the problem isn't the lack of hormones. The problem is the receptor on the cell, which inflammation blocks. So this is an epidemic. Toxins drive that. So part of my process is let's get rid of the bad cells via fasting and this autophagy, where, again, let's back up because maybe some people haven't even heard that word. All that means is during a fasting state, the body will get rid of, it's so smart, it gets rid of the bad cells before it would ever utilize a new good cell for energy. It needs energy. So what does it do? It crushes and utilizes the bad ones. That's autophagy. In 2016, the Nobel Prize was won by this Japanese gentleman who talked all about this process. So we know that not only does it get rid of the bad cell, but it stimulates a stem cell and it makes a new one. So after periods of fasting, and again, you get some of that autophagy by doing daily fasting, 15 hours even studies show, but you get a lot more by doing extended fast. So you get a lot of this renewal that takes place, which is a detox, because your body is literally getting rid of the bad cells that have been damaged by toxins, but there still is a need. Some people say, well, I can't fast, I feel terrible. Well, that's a clue that you need other detox. So, sometimes we have to support the detox even while people are fasting, because the autophagy releases so much toxins, they feel horrible, which is, a whole other topic.
Mm. So let's talk about cellular detoxification for just a section. For just a second, what is it, and what is your recommendations for it?
Yeah, so most detox, I think detox is in vogue right now. I think people realize they have hormone
Yes.
dysregulation, even the inability to lose weight despite eating perfect, as you mentioned, exercising, all these wonderful things. That's a cellular issue. And people have realized that, okay, toxins are the causative factor. It's starting to pop up everywhere. The problem is that people are then going to their health food store or their doctor and they're getting the 10-day cleanse. And, those really, I call them poopers. They'll increase your bowel function, which is probably not a bad thing, right? But it doesn't get to where the real problem is. Real detox has to get to the cell. And I have a saying, you have to fix the cell to get well, but specifically you have to detox the cell to get well. So real detox has to get to the cell. What I mean by that is the onslaught of toxins and stress today, they start shutting down your cell's natural ability to get rid of toxins. And when that's functioning day in, day out, you're healthy, you feel great, your hormones work great. But as the cell's detox pathways start to diminish because of the onslaught of stressors and chemicals, well, what happens is now it's not getting rid of toxins and they're building up in the cell. So that's a problem, because now you start turning on bad genes. You start not hearing your hormones despite even taking them. You start not feeling well, brain fog, digestive issues, all of it, because your cell is malfunctioning. Oh, and you can't even use fat for energy. So when you're not eating, you're like, why am I not benefiting from fasting? Why am I not benefiting from this diet, ketosis, or that diet, or this diet? It's because your cell has a hormonal inability to utilize fat for energy when you're not eating. And that's mostly a toxic effect of the cell. So therefore, if we're going to fix our hormones, if we're going to get our cells as fat efficient burners, because your cells can only use two things for energy, sugar or fat. Healthy cells can use both. When you're not eating, healthy cells switch over and burn fat, which means you're using your own fat stores. Most people, we're finding out, are stuck as sugar burners. So if we can detox the cell, then we can get our cells using fat again. You feel better, you lose weight, you stay lean. I'm in my mid 50s. My wife and I are as lean as we were in our 20s. Matter of fact, I would argue that I'm a little leaner, but anyways, and we're healthier. But again, I've had my own battle. I have my own story. I was very toxic at one point, and so that's where I really discovered all this information.
You guys, if you've been listening to my podcast, you know I've been talking about masszymes, which is a digestive enzyme from Bioptimizers. And I want you to know that here's the thing. For me, having a digestive enzyme is a game changer, because one of the biggest things that happens to me is I get really tired after my meal if I don't do it, and I have a problem with nutrient absorption. So if you could be eating the cleanest diet ever, but if you're not absorbing it, that's an issue. So this month they're doing a really great special, and you're going to get a free bottle of the digestive enzymes from Bioptimizers. And so all you have to do is pay a nominal shipping fee. That's it. No other strings attached. It's the best thing ever. So get your free bottle of digestive enzymes. It's called masszymes. Go to masszymes.com/wasteawayfree and use the coupon code wasteaway10. That's it. So masszymes.com/wasteawayfree. Use the coupon wasteaway10. It's awesome.
Wow. Well, my face is a little swollen right now because I just got 2 teeth pulled. And I had 2 root canals done on my teeth. And then I watched a documentary called The Root Cause. Have you seen it?
Oh, I've seen it and recommended it time and time again.
Yeah, so I went and watched that. And then as soon as I watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm running out to get these 2 teeth extracted immediately.
Well, I mean, with that, so I have what I teach doctors, my 5 R's of how you fix a cell, but also how you detox a cell, right? And the R's are basically based on these cellular detox pathways that get shut down and we have to reestablish. But the bottom line is R number 1 is still remove the sources. Well, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Anyway, so you have to remove the sources. I'll tell you 3 that your viewers need to know. So these 3 things are missed all the time. And yet you won't get well if you don't get to these upstream causes. You mentioned one, hidden infections. So I can't tell you how many people are in a state of chronic inflammation, autoimmune, driving towards cancer, cellular dysfunction, because they have a hidden infection, whether it's a root canal or a wisdom tooth that was extracted 25 years ago, heals over and creates an infection in the jaw called a cavitation. And these cavitations, which they discussed in the movie Root Cause, they create massive interrupt to your hormone system as well as your immune system. And people get cancer on the side of these infections as well as root canals because they're all infected as well. And as well as it drives bad cells. So root canals and cavitations. If you have wisdom teeth that were removed, root canals, you need what is called a cone beam, CONEBEAM. So that is a 3D x-ray that we can identify if we have these hidden infections. Okay, that's one big one that people miss. So congratulations that you.
When they do that cone beam, aren't you looking for like kind of, it's almost like a fuzzy, like if you look at the tooth and look at that area, is it kind of like a fuzzy area and then you know that there's infection there when you're looking at the scan?
Yeah, so you're looking at for a lucency actually. So you'll see kind of like like where it's darker actually. Good bone is very white. These are almost little hollow areas. You can't see these on plain film, on a plain x-ray. So and dentists aren't trained in this. So that's why you have to go to a dentist who understands how to look for these. So if you get a cone beam done, don't send it to your regular dentist. He's not trained in even see. You have to have the special software because you have to be able to look at every angle around these teeth. And that's what this software does with a cone beam. And then you're able to spot these areas of lucency. I was going to show you my wife because she had, if I can find her cone beam and show you, because she started just getting, I noticed that she was snoring, breathing louder at night. And we measure our sleep. Her deep sleep and REM sleep was being affected. Then she started getting drainage on one side of her nose on the left. And we ended up doing a cone beam. For the longest time, I said to my wife, what side did you have your wisdom tooth removed on? And she was telling me the opposite side, but my wife always says opposite. So shame on me because I should have known it ended up to be on the side she was having the trouble. And lo and behold, on the cone beam, she had a massive cavitation there. And you could see how the infection on the sinus above it was about this much inflammation, which was the problem.
Wow.
So, the bottom line is after getting that decavitated, she had this pelvic pain that she had like on and off. It disappeared out of the chair, and by the way, that happens all the time. People get these infections done and all of a sudden their hormones balance. All of a sudden they get their period for the first time. So I had a gentleman, 21 years of chronic pain. He walked out of the dental office, texted me, and he said, Dr. Pompa, could my pain be gone just like that? I said, I don't know, we'll see. Well, that was well over a year ago now, and he's been pain-free ever since. So anyways, the bottom line is that you have to look for these infections. And if I find it, I'll share it with you. But
share it with me.
Exactly.
So let's go through the other ones. So go through the 5 R's.
Yeah, well, real fast, I will go through the 5 R's, but we're on our number 1. Let me just quickly tell you the other ones.
Yeah.
Mold. People don't understand. I was just on the phone with one of my virtual clients, and they found mold in her office. That explained all of these hormone challenges, different challenges she was having. I can't tell you how often it happens. Now, I'm doing all these great things. I can't go, why am I not losing weight? And then we end up finding mold in the house. You don't see it. It's behind walls. If you've had water damage years ago, there's most likely mold still there, dormant perhaps, but still producing what is called a biotoxin. Mold illness is not a mold allergy. This is biotoxic illness that, yes, creates pain. It can create weight loss resistance. All of a sudden you gain weight suddenly. You don't sleep well, anxiety, brain fog, light sensitivity. I mean, frequent urination, getting up throughout the night urinating. All of those are a sign of biotoxic illness. So you have to look for mold. I'll give you a place to start for your viewers. Go online for $10. VCS, like Victor, Cat, Sam, VCStest.com.
Okay.
VCStest.com. Take a $10 test. It's a visual contrast test. When you are exposed to these biotoxins, one of the nerves that's very quickly affected is the optic nerve. And this is a measure of that. So we're not measuring your acuity, meaning your visual. We're actually measuring your contrast.
Wait, say that website one more time.
VCS, Victor, Cat, Sam, VCStest.com.
Okay.
Okay. And this test is looking at contrast. And when you lose that contrast, then you maybe you're having more trouble seeing at night, especially when it's raining. But this test is a first flag that you could have biotoxic illness from mold. So start there. And the last one, just to get through it, are heavy metals. Because look, you may have had silver fillings, which are amalgam fillings that have 50% mercury. That's what made me sick. The problem is that these fillings vaporize mercury into your brain for years. And all of a sudden, one day, you end up with a diagnosis and you don't realize it's the fillings, or you maybe had them out 10 years ago. Problem is that mercury vapor goes across the blood-brain barrier and it turns to inorganic mercury. And there it's stuck for life. So if you don't do the right detox to get it out of your brain, you won't get well. And by the way, most of that mercury bioaccumulates in two glands in your brain, the pituitary and the hypothalamus. That runs your whole hormone system. That's the control tower, your thyroid, your adrenals. When I was sick, I was downstream trying to get my adrenals working, my thyroid working. I knew eventually the problem was here. I just didn't know what was wrong. And after looking at the research, how the mercury comes off these fillings and bioaccumulates mostly in that center brain in the pituitary hypothalamus, I realized what's wrong. There was a whole story there. But anyways, the point is that heavy metals, even if you think it's an issue, they're typically done incorrectly. People are using things like chlorella and cilantro and the 10-day cleanses, herbal cleanses. Those are not utilizing real chelators or binders correctly to actually be able to hold on to something as hard as a heavy metal to get out of the body. So you have to use real chelators. Your detox has to be at the cellular level. And eventually you have to do a brain phase where you're actually targeting it out of the brain. I don't expect everyone watching this to grasp all this, in a short period of time. But the fact is that, this is why I've taught this stuff to doctors for 20 years.
Wow. So if you were going to give someone like the top 3 tips to to help them detox, what would they be?
Yeah, look, you have to go to the cellular level, which we'll go through those 5 R's, which we just did R1, right? You have to get rid of the sources. So, ultimately, number 1 is you have to look at your life and say, where did I get these exposures, right? Or could I still have them? This infection in your jaw, for example, may not be what made you sick or not feel well, but you won't get well unless you get rid of these infections. So the mold in your home may not have what actually made you well, but you won't get well unless you address the mold in your home. Typically what we see when people's lives fall apart are a perfect storm. You have 3 different stressors come together. It could be emotional, because the body doesn't know the difference of chemical, physical, or emotional stress. So it could be emotional, could be mercury and mold, and boom, the bottom falls out. If you remember the movie, The Perfect Storm, you know, 3 storms come together and bam, you know, catastrophic storm. And that's exactly what I see when people go, gosh, what's happened to my life? You had a perfect storm. So look at your life in those areas that I discussed. That's step 1. And step 2 is that you have to really start to do things like the dietary things that we were talking about, right? You know, adding some fasting into your schedule to open up some of your detox pathways. But the other part of it is the rest of the R's, which we can talk about.
Oh, go ahead. Do you want to mention them?
So our number 2 is you regenerating your cell membranes. I don't want to get deep into biochemistry and bore people, but you know, you have 50 to 70 trillion cells in your body. The membranes of these cells are the most critical component to how you feel, how your hormones function. Every possible aspect of detox, the membranes are the key. I just taught a class to 300 doctors, and I was talking in depth about how to fix these membranes to upregulate detox, to turn off bad genes that get turned off. You know who Bruce Lipton is? He wrote the book Biology of Belief.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Bruce Lipton he's a stem cell biologist, brilliant, wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. In his book, he talked about the cell membrane is where the intelligence of the whole body really is, that these integral membrane proteins, which are hormone receptors, reside on the membranes, in that inflammation blocks these receptors. And that's really why so many people have thyroid problems. They can't hear the hormones, even by taking more of them. But when you take hormones, it makes your blood work look better. But if the hormone can't get its message in the cell because these receptors are being blocked by toxins and inflammation, you don't feel better. And you don't burn fat, because if thyroid hormone can't connect to the cell, get its message in to that mitochondria, you don't use fat as energy. We kind of already talked about that, as people are stuck as sugar burners with the hormonal inability to burn fat. Well, this hormonal inability comes from the cell membrane and these receptors being blocked by this inflammation. So we have to fix the membranes if ultimately we're going to fix the hormones and how you feel. Even the inner membranes of a cell. So you make energy in that mitochondria in your cells. And when that membrane's inflamed, you can't burn fat as energy. So we have to fix the membranes, regenerating the cell membrane. Now, here's the tip that I want to give our viewers right away that you can do now, today. Pay attention to the fats that you're putting in your body. But here's there's a lot of confusion here. There's a lot of attention given to omega-3 fats. They're good. And I would argue that most people have too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3, or at least good omega-3s. Now, the problem is the omega-6, which everyone thinks is bad because humans are getting too much of it in the form of vegetable oil, canola oil, grain-fed meats, which raises the amount of omega-6 when we look at someone's test on when we look at fats. Now, here's the point I want you to hear at home. So the omega-6 is the most critical part of fixing your membrane. So the missing link is not the omega-3, it's getting good omega-6. So first off, step 1, look at every product that you're bringing home. Even if you go to Whole Foods or other health food stores, no vegetable oil, no canola oil. It's in everything, even health food stores. Those are bad omega-6. Switch over your family to grass-fed, 100%, because grain-fed is bad omega-6. So we have to eliminate these bad sources of omega-6 because they create a dysfunction in the cell membrane. And then you can't detox and your cells don't work. Okay, step 1 is avoiding those. Step 2 is we want to increase the healthy omega-6 so the membrane functions. Raw nuts and seeds. Replace all of your oils with really good oils. And you can get online and there's one called Andrea's seed oil. Go find his oils. They have a patented process of pressing them. Replace those oils. He has a great 5-seed oil, pumpkin seed oil. Teaspoon or 2 of that a day, plus the raw nuts and seeds and grass-fed meat. Watch what happens to your cell health. So that's the tip at home. All right, and then let me just quickly go through the others. But R3 is you have to restore cell energy. And a lot of the dietary strategies apply here, but so does fixing the membranes. It applies to restoring the cell energy, and so do the fasting strategies. And R4 is reducing cellular inflammation, fasting strategies. R5 is reestablishing methylation. And we have to get methylation up to increase cell detox. That's as far as the science you need to know. And to do that, there's some very good products out there that can help with that.
Wow. Well, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Tell listeners where they can learn about you and find out more about your work.
Yeah, so drpompa.com is my website. So drpompa.com. I do a podcast called Cellular Healing TV. It's right behind me. And I talk about these. I build on these concepts. The combination of cellular detox, fasting strategies is how me and a growing group of doctors that we call health centers of the future. These are the strategies we use to get challenged and sick people well.
That's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on today. Thanks so much for being with us. And everyone else, stay tuned for our next episode.